You're supposed to feel overwhelmed. It means you're learning. It means you're expanding. It means you finally left your bubble of comfort. The worst thing you can do is go back and hide from situations that make life meaningful. Give your mind time to adjust. When people start learning something new, or they want to change their life, or they want to put themselves into uncomfortable or new situations, it's pretty obvious that they have the wrong mindset when they go about it, because they go into the situation and then they feel overwhelmed, and then they're like, I feel overwhelmed. Why is that? And it makes sense. It's because you haven't trained yourself and put yourself in those situations enough times with enough repetitions, like you would in the gym when you're training a muscle and it gets sore the first time, but then you go again and you go again and it stops getting sore and that weight becomes easy for you. And then eventually you can lift heavier weight and expose yourself to a new and more high stimulus or a harder stimulus the next time. And that's how you build mental muscle to learn or change your life and continue changing your life until you reach the ideal future that you want. So when you first go into these situations, you feel discomfort and your mind doesn't like that. And you haven't trained yourself to be okay with that. So you lash back and your instant reaction is to go back to something pleasurable and comfortable. So you sit on your phone or you distract yourself with food or memes or videos or whatever it is, except for the thing that you're supposed to be doing. And because of this, you close yourself off to expansion and growth and understanding of that domain, simply because you haven't given your mind time to adjust to the situation. And that's what we call learning. It's your mind is here. You want to bring your mind here. We're thinking of an expanded circle. And what it takes to get there is discomfort. It's hard to push the boundaries, metaphorically, in your mind or brain. When I attempt to learn something new, none of it makes sense. This is obvious. This should be an obvious thing for us. I suffer with this too, is that I think none of it makes sense. I think it should make sense when it shouldn't in the first place. And so I need to realize that. Because in reality, when things don't make sense, my subconscious mind is just in this state of pattern recognition. It's trying to learn things and that's difficult for it. So when I stick with learning something new and I continue through despite me not knowing what's going on or nothing making sense, slowly, then all at once, the click happens. Everything makes sense. Some people call this the aha moment or just insight. That's what insight is. When the avalanche of insight goes into your head and you're like, oh, that's it. I got it. But this only happens if you lean into the discomfort and you stick with it and you allow your mind to make sense of it. You need to have more trust in the supercomputer that is your mind. Nothing happens, then everything happens. And that is a part of my philosophy for working less, earning more, and enjoying life that I illustrate in my book, The Art of Focus, which is available on Amazon, soon to be available worldwide on my website, and I believe Amazon as well. You feel overwhelmed because you can't digest reality fast enough. You can't deal with the overwhelm because it consumes your attention. All you can focus on are the negative thoughts flooding your mind about how it won't work, how you will fail, and how you could be doing something better with your time. So in bodybuilding, we're going to make a connection here between bodybuilding and mind building. And if you want, I would encourage you to bridge the gap between those two and business building because they're all the same thing. So in bodybuilding, what do? You go to the gym. You train hard to the point where your muscles can't lift any more weight. And if you actually want to build muscle, you need to eat enough food, but not too much, to fuel the muscle growth. You need to be in a caloric surplus. But if you eat too much, you become overweight. You put on fat that you did not want in the first place. And of course, the last part to that formula is just getting ample rest. Now, if we take this over to mind building or even business building, you increase the resistance of your mind. You take on more emotional labor. You take on more emotional weight and allow your mind to lift it. And you train your mind to lift it by showing up to the learning gym, aka just self-education, every day. And so what we need to do here is we need to actually build something with our mind. That's what increases the tension. When you're learning something, you can just study stuff all day and not really learn anything. You need to have something to build, like you're building the muscle. So you need a project. That way you can apply what you learn in reality and get better over time. So when you're building something and you're facing that resistance, then you increase your mental food intake, which is called learning or information. And then in order to rest and recover and actually solidify that, you have to take your rest. You wouldn't go to the gym for 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week and expect to make any progress. So the same is true for work or study. This is why I'm so big on the 4-hour workday, is because you can't train that long and expect to sustain it with any meaningful results. You aren't going to build muscle. You aren't going to lose fat. You're just going to feel like a sack of shit. The lesson or solution to this in all areas of your life is to live at your edge, the edge of the known or the edge of the unknown. When the flow of information is maximized in your life through the balance of consumption and creation, you will encounter meaningful events. You will feel a deep sense of excitement for the future, fulfillment in the present, and gratitude for the past. So what I'm saying here is that when you actually do something challenging, but not too challenging to the point where you just can't think about anything, you're way too overwhelmed. A little bit of overwhelm is very good because it shows that you're challenging yourself and you're expanding your mind to register new opportunities, potentials, and ideas. Like when you're reading a new book, a lot of it isn't going to make sense, but you're going to see that one idea, and that one idea alone is going to cause the excitement. It's going to cause the feeling that you have when you know that you can change your future. So when that happens, when that meaningful event happens, when you read something or you learn something or you build something and the excitement happens, you literally feel the good dopamine kicking into your brain, that you will eventually, once you do this long enough, you start to crave that more than you crave the instant pleasure. So when that happens, make sure you write it down so that you can actually go and use it for the project that you're building. That's why having a project is important, because you have an anchor for the things that you're learning. If I'm not building a project like a Photoshop art or something and I go and learn something, or I have an idea or a potential idea that's there, I have a life experience that shows me an idea that would go really well in my Photoshop art project. If I don't have that art project, I'm not even going to notice that part of life. If you don't have a project, you aren't living meaningfully because you don't have anything to tie your experiences to. If you're just going through the same day in, day out thing, you're not building anything of your own, you're working on someone else's projects for your job, for your entire life, your life lacks meaning. It's obvious. The solution to most of your problems: zoom out, adopt the perspective of your ideal self, break out of the narrow focus that traps you in a chaotic loop of negative thoughts. Understand where you are, choose where you want to be, and bridge the gap with education and execution. So when you're stuck in this state of overwhelm and you are not in a good state of mind to actually learn, you need to learn to zoom out. I call this universal thinking, because most people live in a state of closed-mindedness or narrow-mindedness because they're always stressed out all the time and they don't know how to zoom out. They don't know how to rest more and nurture that stress so that they can open their mind. And since people aren't consciously doing this, they aren't trying to zoom out. They're just stuck in that cycle. They get stressed, they get anxious, then they focus on the stress or anxiety and they magnify it because of that, rather than not zooming in on that, but zooming out from it to see it as a little pixel of a larger image that is reality. And once you zoom out far enough to that of reality, you just see that anxiety as a pixel, and it doesn't hold much weight. Macro and micro. When I look down at an ant, it is tiny. I don't really care about it. I've probably stepped on more than I would have liked to. Does that mean I don't like ants? No, I'm just saying that on this scale, let's use a breadcrumb as an example. Me, 6'5" guy, compared to a breadcrumb, the breadcrumb seems rather insignificant. When you do that with your mind, because you can mold it, it's not physical, you have control over it, you can zoom out, see anxiety for what it is, a small little problem, and move past it. So to do this, to actually have something to practice, I want you to try and move up the perspective ladder, because that's what zooming out is. You're adopting a higher, more inclusive perspective that allows you to see situations for what they are so that you can learn from them. So the first is your current perspective. Take inventory of your current situation. When you're in your current perspective, just understand it. Like zoom out and see it for what it is. Why are you thinking about this? And then you move on to the second, which is the perspective of your ideal self. What would the highest version of yourself do? So if I zoom out to my vision for the future and I realize that I want to work 4 hours a day, I want to have a nice body, I want to have thriving relationships and other things of that nature. Once I realize that, only then can I align and learn and educate myself and execute and build things in alignment with that future in the now. If those things aren't in my focus because I only adopt my current perspective, how am I going to move past that or grow into something new? And the third is the perspective of the universe. Beyond all limits, most of our worries are irrational and meaningless from the highest perspective. So beyond that, when you move from your ideal perspective to the perspective of the universe, then you start to really see things for what they are, and you can act in a way that is truly authentic to you. And those three stages, the three perspectives, your current perspective, ideal self perspective, universe perspective, that's what the symbol of my book means. The three concentric circles. It's moving out. Yes, it's kind of a bullseye, meaning focus, but it's how do you focus? You zoom out and you zoom in. So the other thing here is specifically for learning something new, like a skill or something that will actually help you change your future. You need to understand learning is pattern recognition or distinction. And if you're just focused on one topic and you can't branch out and become a generalist for a bit and understand the other domains that it's connected with, you can't note those patterns. You can't learn it like an expert would. You aren't going to be able to come up with the creative ideas that allow you to take it further than anyone else ever has. So do you see what we did earlier and what I mean by this? In order for me to understand the learning process, I need to dissect it. I need to understand, okay, I need to build something, I need to learn something, I need to rest. And when I zoom out and see the universe for what it is and all of its principles and all of them being relatively similar, I can make much faster progress because I can be like, oh, this is exactly like building a business, or oh, this is exactly like bodybuilding. It's just different layers of reality that interconnect. And once I understand that, I can start to learn anything even faster. If you want to learn faster, don't start learning. Outline a project, start building it out, learn along the way. Too many people get trapped in tutorial hell, stacking up useless knowledge as brain fog. Start, encounter a problem, seek specific knowledge to overcome it. In a gist, that's how you should learn anything, because we already talked about this. You start a project, you outline it so that you have anchors from which you can map your everyday experiences and the things that you learn or consume to it. Otherwise, you wouldn't notice those things and you wouldn't live with meaning. And then as you're building, you're already building it. You're building the project. Once you hit a wall, then your mind is primed for learning, because learning comes from struggle, not memorization. And so when you go to fill that knowledge gap, because it's like, oh, I'm creating Photoshop art here, I don't know how to do this. That's a problem. I'm going to go and research a specific tutorial on how to do that. And then I go back, I solve it, and I do it, right? Rather than watching endless tutorials on like how to use Photoshop, I'm just using it. It's going to take me longer to build that project, but that's how you learn. And then you get faster at building the projects over time. So when you learn how to learn, you can accomplish 6 years of results in 6 months. And of course, this really varies, but for most people who don't learn anything after they graduate college, you can do that. It takes them 6 years to learn something very basic and actually do something new. When you can follow this process and continuously reinvent yourself over and over again. So step 1 to learning anything fast is what we just talked about. It's creating a clarity catalyst. And your clarity catalyst is a project. It's an outline. It's a pattern recognition intention. You are intending to have something that you are applying all of your everyday situations to. It becomes your vessel. And so there were a few moments in my life where I really felt like I was making progress. And because I was making progress, if you understand that feeling of pure progress, the flow state, for like 3 to 6 months of obsession, you know what I'm talking about here. All of that learning makes life good. So those periods were writing my book, writing newsletters that I really enjoyed writing, and building out my products. Because one, newsletter outline every week brings meaning to my life, because all of the things that I consume, all of the lessons I learned, can be framed within that newsletter under a topic that I'm talking about. And especially my book. That's a massive outline with so many different things that I can connect. Literally everything in my life. I was going on these walks for 30 minutes to an hour at a time, listening to lectures, listening to like fitness videos that would have no business in my book. And I was just like, my mind was lighting up with information because I was just writing what could be in my book in my notes on my phone. And so if you want part of this in your life, I recommend writing, especially with my 2-hour writer course. Shameless plug. Because writing is just the greatest skill that transfers over into any other skills. I've sold multiple products in the past. I'm sure you guys know this. I've sold web design, etc., but it all came back to writing. And so that's why I changed what product I sold, because I wanted to sell you guys something that is actually useful and teaches you an invaluable skill that can create career opportunities for you, and you can build your own career with it. So in order to create a project outline, you need an outline so you can note ideas to fill in that outline from everyday life, milestones so you have direction and clarity on your next steps. Milestones are like goals, so a hierarchy of goals. What am I going to hit in a week? What am I going to hit in a month? What am I going to hit in a year? And then you need a real world deadline that forces you to act, or else your survival takes a hit. I have to post my newsletters and videos every Saturday and Sunday. I have to launch my products on the date that I choose to launch them. And if I don't get those things done or learn how to do them within that time frame, I'm fucked. And lastly, you need experimentation, trial, and error so you can turn failures into lessons. And if you don't know what project to create, you just need to look at what others have done and emulate and start there. Okay, this guy, Dan, is doing what I want to do by writing for 2 hours a day and making a living doing so. He writes newsletters. I want to write a newsletter as a project. I want to write a batch of tweets as a project. I want to create a YouTube video as a project. Okay, do that. Emulate something of mine. If you want to do Photoshop art, look up a project and a tutorial of people building out the project with you. The second step is to learn as you build, because if you aren't building, you aren't learning. If you aren't actively applying what you learn to a problem sitting in your mind, you are simply stacking useless knowledge as soon to be forgotten brain fog. So when you start building something new, you only need the fundamentals. You don't need any fancy tactics. You need to focus on one specific thing to actually learn and overcome it. And now, when I say learn something, yes, I'm talking about a skill in terms of your career. I'm also talking about strategies for better relationships. I'm also talking about how to get fit. I'm talking about how to achieve any goal in your life, because you have to learn how to achieve it first. This is how you achieve any goal in your life so you can achieve anything you want in life. So when you have a project to build, and your project can be your body, your project can be a Photoshop art, your project can be a newsletter, what goal are you achieving? That's what you need to focus on. What's a big problem in your life? What's the goal you want to achieve to overcome that problem? Now, once you have a project to actually make that tangible and overcome it, this is what you do. Purchase a beginner level course on the topic. Then watch overview videos on YouTube that teach the fundamentals. Study them until you have clarity on what to do next. Then do it, and when you encounter a problem, refer back to the sections of the course or video, research how to solve that problem directly, and watch tutorials where people build projects similar to yours and see how they overcome those problems. Learning is problem solving, not hoarding as much knowledge as you can. Step 3 is to teach what you learn. The protege effect. A psychological phenomenon where teaching, pretending to teach, or preparing to teach information to others helps a person learn that information. When you teach, you pay closer attention when you learn and identify knowledge gaps that help you learn faster. And I, of course, recommend the business model / way of life that is becoming a creator or becoming a personal brand, or just putting your public resume out there, because employers are hiring based on your social media account and what you post content about. Customers are hiring from that. Clients, that's how they find you. Your virtual reality character, aka your personal brand on social media, is very important. And that's what you're doing. It's your teaching. So when you bake that into your work, rest, play, etc., when you bake it into your life, just teaching by writing content or posting something interesting to you, that's how you learn it faster. And the thing about the protege effect is that when you know that you're going to go teach something, every time you learn it, when I'm reading a book, this is how I write my tweets. I read a book, I see an idea, and I'm like, damn, that's one that I wish I wrote. And I take it. When I notice that idea, I'm like, I need to write content about this because I'm ready to teach it. My mind takes more care in life when I know that I can do something with any of the information that goes into my head. And I also teach this in 2-Hour Writer or digital economics. Or if you want more of a group cohort style with more resources relating to it, it's more expensive too. Cortex University, which is like the higher tier of all of those things. If you want that VIP experience and to get better results and have a better community. Write in public and let people criticize you. Teach your friends to make for interesting conversations. Take notes on the subject, but write them as if you were teaching yourself. Teaching forces you to make sense of the information. That way you solidify it more in your mind. So the thing here is I don't want to teach other people because I feel like an imposter. So quickly, on imposter syndrome, the solution is simple. It's be honest. Don't fabricate your experience. Don't lie about what you know. Teach from the lens you learned it. Something as simple and attention-grabbing as, I read The Art of Focus in 23 hours. Here are the life-changing lessons I learned on joining the new rich. That is honest to where you are in your learning journey. And it's similar to marketing a product. It's just don't make false promises. Don't promise something you haven't done. Just talk about from your experience. People want to learn from people who are close to them. So step 4 is to expand to a new level of mind and to make bigger connections. So here's a cool graphic if you want to use it as like a wallpaper or whatever you use graphics for, but looks cool. Read to expand your mind, write to organize your mind, build to focus your mind. So by this point in your learning, you've started a project, you started learning to solve problems as you're actually building the project. You are teaching what you learn to learn faster, and now you probably feel overwhelmed, and that's a good thing. It means that your mind is primed for pattern recognition. So you need to launch yourself into the unknown. You need to get more uncomfortable. You need to immerse yourself in the culture, environment, and information related to what you were trying to learn. Second, you need to condition your mind through repetition and exposure. So slowly understand the lingo, vocabulary, and skill set of those who have seen success in that topic. And then you let your mind expand through the discomfort, because the worst thing you can do is quit when you are feeling growing pains. So to make this more practical, you need to read books, because books give you 10 years of effort from 6 hours of reading. And then you consume lectures. So long articles and videos give you 3 days of effort in 20 minutes. And then follow new people. This is less about consuming short form content and more about training your mind to be in that tribe of people. Now, on to connecting ideas, because when you master one thing, it becomes much easier to master other things. Now, when you feel like you have a solid understanding on the topic that you're learning, you need to zoom out a layer again. So zoom out one layer, move from Photoshop to graphic design to creative work, then take note of signal. So when your mind signals important information, write it down, and then build better projects. From a new level of mind, build a new project that will take you to the success you want to see. So that is it. If you want to learn a high income skill, which is high impact digital writing, check out 2-Hour Writer. If you want to build your one-person business, check out digital economics. If you want to start your digital career in 90 days with a rather fast-paced cohort style with a network to help you grow inside, check out Cortex University. Other links in the description for all cool stuff like my physical planner, Cortex, which is coming soon, which is a second brain app, all of that fun stuff. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.